Hey guys, Cobes here. Just before we get this episode underway, I do want to mention that there is a lot of swearing. Anyone who's been following the podcast for a while does understand that I do tend to swear a bit. However, when I talk to military guys, ex-military guys, some of my mates, that swearing increases even more as it is part of the vocabulary. So my apologies for that. Also, point to note is that there are a few dark topics in this conversation. We do discuss anxiety, depression, PTSD, and suicidal thoughts. So if you are sensitive to those topics, maybe worth skipping. However, in saying that, if you potentially want some actionable takeaways to identify some of the symptoms and some things that you can put into place on a daily basis to get yourself out of a hole and moving in the right direction, then could be a great conversation for you to listen to. Also, point to note is that there was a little bit of a lag in the conversation in the recording. So when Wes was speaking a few times, it would take a few seconds for that to come through to hear my reply. So you will hear a little bit of that as well. Without further ado, let's get this episode underway. Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Live, Train, Perform podcast. I'm your host, Sean Kober, and joining me today is Wes Masters. Wes, I'm excited to have a conversation with you, mate. I've spoken to a couple of guys that you know very well, Simon Moloney and Paul Minter, and we're going to hear your side of the story in today's episode. So first of all, welcome to the episode, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Cobes. Great to be here. Yeah, honestly, I watched your previous podcast, and it's great to be on.
Awesome, man. Incredible story that we're going to dig into. But to lead into that, talk to me about the 4th of July. When I mentioned that date, what does that mean to you? What emotions come up? What feelings come up?
Oh, hit me deep there. So, yeah, it's reminds me of 4th of July 2013 when we had quite a hairy day in Afghanistan, myself and the troop. And yeah, one of the boys, Simon, who you had on previously, got took a round to the neck. I was one of the medics on the ground that day. I was the medic assigned to that troop, and yeah, so I kind of went up, moved up to him, treated him, got him extracted, and we had a real difficult time to make it out of there. And thankfully, our American colleagues came in and just peppered the place and managed to get us out alive. So yeah, that's what the 4th of July means to me. It kind of makes me feel a little bit patriotic American when I'm really not at all, but yeah, it makes me feel things.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Totally understandable. And we're going to dive into that in a little bit more detail. We are recording this on Thursday, the 22nd of July. So that was obviously recent, that anniversary for you. What did you do what do you do? Do you do like anything to kind of celebrate that anniversary, or, I say celebrate because, I've been in the ship before and was awarded, commendation for gallantry and like, it's a celebration, man. Like, fuck, I lived. Our boys are still alive. Like, we're good to go. So, what sort of thoughts and feelings are evoked when that date comes up for you? And do you celebrate it? Is it something that you kind of put behind you? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, it's something that, everyone has their own journey, right? But it's something I had to put behind me. And yeah, me and Si will send each other a message. We'll just be like, I love you, bro, or something like that. And, or love you, proud of you, something like that. We'll just drop each other just a subtle message, and that'll be it, I will probably get a little bit anxious around that time, as I do around other kind of key dates in the year that have significance from Afghanistan. But nothing too major. Yeah, maybe I won't be able to sleep or something that I'll have difficulty sleeping. But yeah, I don't really go out and get smashed or anything like that, specifically dedicated to the day. Not that I'm against it, but just my process was I had to let it all go, man. I had to move on.
Yeah, fuck. Absolutely, mate. And everyone deals with things differently, right? So This podcast is all about mental health and talking to people like yourself who have faced, some pretty fucking extreme adversities and, have come out the other side. And then we dig into, the principles and the tools that you've used to, deal with those things and overcome them and continue fucking living your life, man. So that's pretty much what this conversation is going to be all about. But before we roll into that conversation, I'm just going to read something off here. So hopefully I don't bring up too many emotions or start stirring anything. Then a private Masters troop landed by helicopter and broke into their target area, an insurgent command node at first light. Placing a team in Overwatch on the compound roof, the troop moved in to search another target. The enraged enemy began occupying firing positions around the troop, engaging the Overwatch team and firing from 2 other positions onto Masters patrol. At 0620 hours, one member of the Overwatch team was shot through the neck, the round passing behind his voice box, grazing his trachea and narrowly missing arteries in his neck by less than a millimeter. Masters' troop were pinned down by carefully coordinated and accurate enemy fire. Knowing that a member of his troop had been shot, Masters reacted without waiting for orders and moved straight to his injured comrade across 300 meters of open ground, weighed down by 60 kilograms of equipment and in full sight of 2 enemy firing positions only 150 meters away. Masters remained calm despite being under fire and confronted by an extremely rare, complicated and delicate injury he had no previous experience of. Underslung grenade rounds were landing within 4 meters of Masters, but despite the risk to his own life, he remained focused on stabilizing the casualty. His pragmatic medical treatment kept the casualty from deteriorating whilst waiting for medical evacuation, and remarkably, under strict supervision and robust management, even allowed for the injured soldier to keep firing. Finally, Masters escorted the soldier for casualty evacuation, and on moving to the helicopter, he again consciously exposed himself to enemy fire to ensure his patient was protected before returning to the fight for a further hour before the troop managed to extract. What comes up when you hear that, bro?
Yeah, mate, you made me all emotional. You made me feel things. Yeah, I don't know why that
got you right in the feels, mate.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, you had me little shed a tear a little bit, but yeah, I don't know why that gives me that reaction. Maybe it's just because it's been a while, but maybe it's just the process of how I left it all behind, and it kind of drags me straight back. And in the moment, I mean, I was like anyone, you've been out there. It's all a joke, and I didn't care if I got whacked. I was just doing what you do, I guess. But yeah, now some time's gone by, I guess, and when you think about it, it's especially those moments, it's, I don't know, you think, wow, I kind of did something like out of the ordinary there, and yeah, it makes you, I guess, proud of yourself, where I guess before those times you wouldn't have had a huge amount to be proud of. I wouldn't have had a huge amount to be proud of myself for. So yeah, to be kind of, I guess, the same person on a Monday and then on Tuesday, but Tuesday I did this act and then apparently I'm all this different person. Yeah, it's mad. It kind of makes you a little emotional.
Yeah, sorry about that, mate. I wanted to kick that off,
mate,
just to give people an understanding of why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And
but dude, I totally understand where you're coming from, man. Like, go on.
Oh yeah, well, I was gonna say, I wondered why he asked me for that citation, that little slippery snake, Simon. But yeah, it's yeah, there's all the things that come around it, right? It was a great time in my life. I was with my best friends, and coming from a difficult family situation to be thrust in, and you have this amazing family around you who will give their lives for you, to then be challenged and have like one of the world's what was highlight enemy at that time, like bearing down on you, and has whacked one of your mates, to then step the fuck up and be like, yeah, no, we're as good as you. And I'll tell you right now, I'm prepared to die today. Are you? And like, turns out they weren't. So, yeah, man, it was a great day. And Yeah, I think we all struggled to sleep for the next couple nights because of the rush of it all. And yeah, and I think as well,
Yeah,
the
mate.
good that we did
Yeah,
that
I
day,
can imagine, man.
it doesn't, in the citation, it doesn't say it. And, we don't talk about it too much, but as a medic, I think of things from another angle a lot of the time. And we disrupted basically a school where they were from the local area. They were killing families and taking the children to put them in this compound and then raise them up as extremists. And they had like 30 odd kids there. And we disrupted that. And that's why they fought so hard to try and keep it. And yeah, man, it makes you
Hmm.
proud to think that somewhere there could be, even if just one of those kids like goes on and becomes a scientist or does something, like it's obviously the chances are slim, but the chances are
Hmm.
slim that you survive a gunshot wound to the neck. So anything can happen. Um, but yeah, mate, to think of the good that
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
do out there
absolutely.
is just off the back of having a real good scrap. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. That's awesome, mate. First of all, like, I'm proud of you, bro. We'll dive into, that day, how the events unfolded. I've already spoken about it in detail with Simon, but I want to hear it from your point of view as well. And then we'll talk about you being awarded the military cross by the Queen as well. Prior to that, though, one of the first questions that I ask people as a guest on the podcast is around the Swiss 8 principles. So you've obviously spoken to Sai, and those guys are working through the Head Up stuff and building that charity over in the UK. Swiss 8 has been doing something very similar in Australia for the last couple of years. They initially had a very similar idea of building a retreat for veterans to be able to go away and teach people these life skills to reintegrate back into society. And use these and repurpose, these SOPs, standard operating procedures, and things like that we learnt in the military to then repurpose them, use them in the civilian space. Unfortunately, one of the boys ended up taking his own life, which is a problem for you guys over there, a problem for us in Australia. It's a problem for, veterans in the US, most coalition forces. So Swiss 8 actually ended up coming up with an app that people could download and structure in and schedule 8 pillars of health and wellness onto their phone. And then each one of those pillars would have like a veteran like myself who's providing content. So I provide a training program under the fitness component, and another one of the boys provided the mindfulness work under the mindfulness component, et cetera, et cetera. So the Swiss 8 principles, the 8 pillars are sleep, nutrition. Hey, you've got it. Sleep,
Yeah,
nutrition, time management, discipline, fitness, personal growth, mindfulness, and minimalism. Do any of those pillars stand out for you at the moment? And is there one of those that you really focus on to allow you to be better at life?
Yeah, I've got them here. So I just want to, I'll probably touch on a few of them. So sleep is obviously hugely important, but I wouldn't have said that is something that I, at this stage, really got out of my way to make sure is kind of nipped. Nutrition, again, is just, I really center that around my activity, and it doesn't really play into my mental wellness. But then I guess it kind of does, right? Because if I were to deteriorate in horrendous shape, then that would negatively impact me mentally. So yeah, I love a scoff. So I essentially have to just kind of keep an eye on my nutrition. I studied nutrition at university, so I do have a good kind of idea on it. Discipline, I think, is hugely important, and I think this is probably one thing that one of the main points out of that is that yeah, if I didn't stay disciplined after leaving the military, I would have just fallen away, and I think it's hugely important. I remember my first tour of Afghanistan. Just that was where I really learned that if you can find a routine in something, if you can be disciplined and find a routine in anything that you do, you can endure an outrageous amount of, like, there's nothing you can't do. So yeah, that for me probably is the one that's right up there, and I feel that kind of goes hand in hand with time management. Fitness is important to me. I train a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not vital. I can not train for a week or 2 weeks or something like that, and it won't really negatively impact my mental health, which wasn't always the case. But after leaving the military, I then had that process, which we'll probably get into a little bit later. And yeah, once I recovered from this, I kind of had gotten to a point where physical training wasn't like the key thing that kept my mental health right, which for me I feel was a great point. And especially what with the lockdown that we just had, it was real kind of helpful to not have that being central to my mental well-being. But it does make you feel good, especially with a bad day. Personal growth, man, this is huge. I have to be pushing for the next thing and the next thing. And I start every year, like when people make these like kind of, what's the word, where they basically don't want to do this thing for the next year.
Resolutions.
The resolutions, that's it. I don't know, I was having a mind fart then.
Okay.
When they do a New Year's resolution, I never do that, because if I don't want to do something, I just don't do it. But at the start of the year, I'm just like, okay, well, there's these two big things that I really want to do, probably way out of whack that I'll ever achieve them. But, you know, it would be good if I could do them this year. And I literally am sat there with excitement on the 1st of January, just thinking, I cannot wait to see what I'm going to accomplish and how I'm going to grow this year, and the person that is going to see this year out. So personal growth for me is huge, and it really keeps me going and keeps me driven. Which then I guess fills you with pride and stuff, and it just keeps your mental well-being. Like I'm so happy, man. So that probably is quite an important one for me. Minimalism, I quite like that. I'm not a huge minimalist, but I am a moderate, I'd say. I only kind of like to use things that I need to use, and I hate food waste and stuff like that. So yeah.
All right. So you've spoken about like how those things relate to you now. Has there been a time in your life when, you know, something was definitely a lot more important than other things, and that was like central? You spoke about like fitness, right? You said that, you know, that was an integral part of your mental health. It was like one of your coping mechanisms, I guess. And Si joked about it, and, you know, every day's a legs day, you know. So has there been other times when some of those principles become like, or have been the number one priority, and then if you're not doing those things, then, you know, it kind of like has a downward spiral effect?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I would say the downward spiral that I took after leaving the military was about a 2-year period. Again, we'll probably come back on this, but during that time, fitness was just the thing, man. I would cycle everywhere. If I wasn't cycling somewhere, I'd run there. First thing I thought about when I woke up was, what am I going to train today? How am I going to train? What time am I going to get it in? And what time am I going to do my second session? Like I would train 2-3 times a day, and it was, I mean, I was in sick shape, mate, but I was not super happy. But it was keeping me going, you know, and there was other things that kept me going in that time that I guess we can come back to later. But yeah, that fitness, mate, it was keeping me alive at that time, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we will circle back to that, and we'll dive into that in a little bit more detail. But I assume that was like kind of like the only coping mechanism that you had when you were going through a bit of a rough time. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was, coupled with believing truly that I would get out of it. So I had true belief. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I just believed that I was going to get out of the hole. And yeah, so that really, so just understanding that I would grow, that personal growth would take place. You know, if you do all the right things, right? If you educate yourself, you train, you look after the people around you, you surround yourself with the right people, then, you know, those are the principles for success. Like you can't kind of do all of those things and then not pull yourself out of it. So yeah, I just had to believe and just trust that I would get myself out of it in the end. And it did happen.
Yeah, awesome, man. We're going to circle all the way back to this, but let's take a little bit of a journey first. Yeah. How old were you when you joined the military? Why did you join the military? What year was that? What was kind of the training process? How long were you in for? And then that will kind of lead up to actions on the 4th of July, 2013.
Yeah. Okay, good question. So I joined in 2007. I was 18 years old. I joined because I essentially just couldn't really get a job. Or I couldn't nail one down and keep one. So I guess to circle back, I was kind of like expelled. They basically said, "Look, there's no point in you being in school anymore. Just go to work or something." When I was 15,
Just fuck off, mate.
yeah, so yeah, pretty much, and it was the second school that had done that, right? So it was a bit annoying, um, and technically, I think illegal in this country, but yeah, they managed it because I'm from the country. I'm from the middle of nowhere, right? I'm like what you'd think of as an Iowa kid or like some. Yeah, I essentially just went and worked in like a tire and exhaust shop at 15, and I just wanted to graft. That was all I wanted to do. I just wanted to graft and earn money. And cut to like 16, 17, 18, and because I didn't really sit my GCSEs or my kind of like end of school exams, people were like, no, we're not giving you a job or apprenticeship. And I really wanted to kind of work in construction at the time. And yeah, couldn't really nail anything down. And
they're like, your options are limited, mate.
Yeah, mate. So then that deteriorated to the point where, I was going out and I was mixing with the wrong people and getting into, all the kind of trouble that you do. And then you start stealing to sell that stuff to buy beer and food and stuff. And, so then that was the journey. And then there was the point where, because at 15, kind of my mum had said, look, I don't want you here anymore. Go and live with your dad. At 17, my dad was like, look, we're moving house, don't have anywhere for you. So unfortunately, you have to find your own thing. Then I lived with someone else and was kind of like bouncing around sofas and stuff. And then they were like, look, unfortunately, there's no longer a place here. So it was getting to the point where I was now I'd gone in this spiral down where, okay, where am I going to live now? I'm 17 years old, or I've just turned 18. Where am I going to live? What am I going to eat? And how am I going to support myself? So I'd always just been like, no, I'm enough. Like, I'll crack on. I'll just do it and fine. And my dad basically stepped in and said, look, I'm not having you live in that kind of shitty, scummy place with those people. That he probably, I guess, kind of saw it going ahead that I was a year away from prison, and that you just, it's real hard to recover from. So he pretty much just grabbed me by the hand, walked me into the Army Careers Office and said, find this kid a job, pretty much. And then, I joined. I wanted the quickest out, really. So they were going to pay me. They're going to give me somewhere to live, and they're going to feed me. Right? That was all I wanted to. That was all I cared about. I was like, yeah, no worries. Just tell me what I need to do, and tell me how fast I need to run, what time of day I need to do it, and I'll do it. So I was just pretty much a lost boy, mate. That the army just got hold of, and I guess I had the raw, the toughness or whatever, and yeah, they kind of molded me to fit it. And I joined the parachute regiment initially because I wanted to join the toughest thing that the army had. And I wanted to go to war straight away. And it was just that time when Afghanistan was starting up, and I wanted the quickest way through. And because I didn't sit my GCSEs, I got a really high score on the army entrance, but I didn't have the GCSEs to match. So they were just like, infantry, off you go. And then I changed to be a medic after about a year and a half.
Yeah, dude, that's an interesting story, man. Like, very, very, very similar story to myself. A few little differences here and there, but yeah, very similar story, man. All right, so you joined as an infantry soldier. Talk to me about that process of going through the recruit training, the initial employment training, and all that sort of stuff. Like, what did you learn from that? And what were some of the key takeaways that you took from that training process before you then transitioned to become a medic?
That is hands down one of the most gopping experiences I've ever had. That training package that they run up there, it was disgusting. I mean, by week 4, my section had to be disbanded because everyone had left, and then the last like 3 or 4 people were put into other sections. It was ridiculous. They really were just trying to weed out the mentally weak. And so, what did that teach me? Teach me resilience, mental resilience, which I kind of already had, but I guess when people are falling away around you and you're still there and you still keep going and going and going, and then another person's like, right, I'm leaving, and you just still seem to keep being there, it kind of like spurs you on and keeps you going. But in the end, and I guess it taught me that one key takeaway is that sleep is a luxury, I guess, that you can kind of function without sleep if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah. For certain periods of time.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're the same as us, mate, in the Australian Army. It's like, fucking sleep whenever you can, because you don't know when you're going to be able to do it again.
Yeah, mate. Actually, there's a real good saying about this, and it does take a bit explaining because it doesn't necessarily make sense right off the bat. But there was one of my first tour of Afghanistan when I was with 3 para and I was their medic, and I was sat there on my sleeping bag after we'd just assaulted a village, and then we kind of were sat in this compound and they're defending it, and the Taliban are coming in, and then there's a little break in the contact. So I'm sat there just feeling like I need to be sat there doing something just because it's the middle of the day. And one of these like corporals walked past who did the howling tours before, loads and loads of experience at war. And he just said, mate, if you're on it, you might as well be in it. And I just thought, oh yeah, that's true. If I'm sat on my sleeping bag, I might as well just be in it asleep. And I carry that forward even today, right? So if I have a gap in the day, I think, I might just get my head down for a bit. I might just have a nap for an hour, because that will then, if I then need to crack on through the night to read or to do something else, I'll then have that extra energy to do that. And so, yeah, I'm always a big fan of if you're on it, you might as well be in it. If I'm not doing anything, I might as well just get my head down.
Yeah, I love that, mate. I love it. And that's something the military teaches you, man, is like, you could be, I'm sure, we'll speak about this later on, but, I remember going out on patrols where we would be in like Bushmasters or whatever, like our armored vehicles, Australian armored vehicles when I was in Iraq, and like we'd be going out on patrol and it was like everyone was just fucking asleep, man. And it's like, all right, then they wake you up 5 minutes before, all right, we're approaching the target, and everyone's like, all right, sweet, good to go, boom. And it's like, you literally fucking wake up and boom, roll straight into action, bro.
Yeah.
There's not many people that I know that like have conditioned themselves to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the ability to wake up really quickly and fall asleep really, really quickly and sleep on or in or around anything. Yeah, it does give you that, bro, skill. Yeah, absolutely anything. I've heard, I got a mate I've heard was like sleeping under his desk at work at the office just because ex-military guy, and yeah, was hitting it a bit hard at night and just getting his nut down under his desk.
I've been there, not gonna lie.
Yeah, but that's it. And also on a health perspective, there's so much research right now, I'm sure of it, that like if you like nap once a day or something, it clears away your mind, and it helps prevent Parkinson's or Alzheimer's in the long run. So napping is a bit of a joke, but I napped every single day up until my last day in the military. And then obviously kind of when real world takes over, you don't really have that time. But yeah, mate, I love the nap in the middle of the day.
The real world. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, mate. All right, cool. So we've just spoken about what you took away from the recruit training, initial employment training, things like that. Why did you transition from being an infantry soldier to becoming a medic?
Yeah, good question. So I had an injury, so I never passed that training. So I had an injury where I'd gone through a window and slashed all my hand and wrist up and stuff, and it took a long time to recover from. By the time I'd recovered, so I mean about 6 months, and I'm still in recruit training for 6 months, still getting the same shit. So yeah, immediately I was like, right, I'm gone, I'm out of here, and I went to go to be a medic, because during that time as well, people get in your ear and they're like, you can just work with these people, but as their medic. And yeah, it turned out to be true, but yeah, it's I'd say probably the little whispers got in my ear, and I gave it in, went to go be a medic, did my medical training, and then went and then got reattached back to the Airborne Brigade, and then served with them out in Kenya and Afghanistan and stuff like that. So that's why I transitioned. And also, I'd say probably, I always say it's hard to connect the dots looking forward. It's easier when you're looking back. But looking back on that, it was so nice to be one of the first names on the ORBAT list when you're going out on patrol, right? So, oh, who do we need to take out today? Oh, well, we need the medic, we need the commander, and we need the guy who's going to bring bombs. Like, we need those people. So to be like a necessity, one of the most important people on the patrol, from a kid who is used to not ever being wanted by anyone, it was huge, right? So it was a good decision for me in the end.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I spent 6 years full time as an infantry soldier and like 3.5, 4 years as a qualified sniper. And dude, like, I did so many fucking courses, and I got out of the military and nothing was recognized on paper, right? So, I had all these amazing like life experiences and life skills and weapons qualifications and, leadership qualities and, first aid experience. Like I was a combat first aider. So it was a 2-week super intensive course, obviously nothing to the level that you're qualified at, but, being able to fucking treat, be a first responder on the battlefield and like keep people alive until someone like yourself, a medic who is more highly qualified, can get there and take over the job, So, I did a 2-week fucking CFA course, man, and like, put tourniquets on my mates and patch them up and like, jam my hand in their leg to stop the bleeding and, gave IV fluids and morphine and blah, 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 blah. And I got out of the army and I had to sit a 2-day St. John's fucking first aid course before I could actually use that I had paperwork, bro, to be qualified as a PT and work in a gym, man. And I was like, I had all these amazing skills that did not transfer to the civilian space. I think a lot of dudes struggle with that. So, looking back, are you glad that you have those skills and have used those skills transitioning back from military to the civilian space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a really good point that you said there. The military is excellent, and clearly your military is just as good as ours, as training you up to a very high standard, but not giving you the paperwork. It's like that scene in Monsters Inc. when she's like, Mike Wazowski, you got your paperwork? And it's like, no, I don't, but I got the skills. And basically, yeah, mate, that's exactly it, right? Like they train you to such a high standard and they don't give you anything to back it up. So I was in the same boat when I left, and I did the Ronin South Africa bodyguard course. So I had they do a med package at the end of that. So I had some kind of paperwork at least to say that I was medically competent, but no, it didn't equate anywhere near to the standard I was trained at. But luckily, and as I said to you in the green room, I went to university after leaving the military. And that is a time when, people were trying to do anything to get money. I said that badly. Like doing bar work or whatever. But
OnlyFans.
Yeah, right. But I worked for a private medical company who, if they have like kind of a doctor, they'll maybe they like you, they think that you're skilled, they'll just kind of like give you they will allow you to do certain things under their umbrella, as it were. And yeah, I found a private medical company that would treat me as
supervision,
just under a paramedic level. But yeah, they were paying me, I think, £13 an hour, which was okay for being a student. And yeah, so I was doing nightclub stuff, private events as a medic, alongside other things. So yeah, I definitely used that afterwards to bring some cash in when I needed it. And also separately, I think, more importantly, is that I think of myself as an asset to the society. So if I'm walking down the street, and in fact, mate, I had this the other day. I was driving back from a mate's and came across some car accident. Some kid had just gone into a hedge at like 60 mile an hour, flipped his car down the road at like 1 a.m. And I've gotten out and I'm like, okay. And I assessed the kid and I'm like, did his Glasgow coma score to make sure he didn't have brain damage and stuff. Handed over to the ambulance on the phone, and there was a little bit of panic at the time when I got there, but then you kind of can go in and you say, look, I didn't hang around because I thought he was a bit of a prick and I knew he was going to live. So, but ultimately it's life skills, isn't it? So having been medically competent, I think, is quite important, and especially if you're a parent, right? It's quite important, I'd say.
Dude, 100%, man. Mate, you made a very fucking good point then. Like, this happened to me probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and I haven't told this story on the podcast. I haven't told many people, man, because I'm not one of those people. I'm like, hey, look what I did. It just fucking happened, right? Like, I was like heading to go and get a massage. Have you been to Thailand?
Not yet, mate. It's coming. It's due.
So in Thailand, there's like a lot of people on the road on scooters, right? So dude, I've seen so many accidents. I've been here for 4 years, and about 2-3 months ago, I was riding like about 8:30 at night. I was on my way to go and get a massage. Had a fucking massive week. I was, burnt out. I was tired. I was like, all right, I need to relax. And like probably maybe 600 meters from my place, I drove onto the main road, and like 50 meters in front of me, man, there was a car on the right-hand lane, scooter on the left-hand lane, and somehow like they collided, and the fucking car kept driving. The dude came off his scooter doing about 60 kilometers an hour. The scooter's like sliding down the fucking road. The dude's like hit really hard and then just started like rolling down the road. And I'm like, fuck, right in front of me. So I've just pulled over, like ran over, like started talking to blah, blah, blah. And he's like, ah. So I knew that he was like still conscious. I grabbed his bike, ran it off the road, like started like, organizing people. I'm like, hey, you come over here. And it's like Thai, right? It's Thai people. So I'm just like pointing at them, like calling them over. I'm like, hey, you start directing traffic. I'm making sure that, he's not going to get fucking hit by a car or anything like that. I go over to him, see what's going on, start talking to him, tell him not to move, blah, blah, blah. And like normally when people see an accident in Thailand, they fucking just sit there and watch, man, and do nothing and start filming. And like I've seen this so many times. I was like, all right, I need to take charge of this situation. Right. And then like I got this little girl over. I'm like, you're directing traffic. I'm like, you call an ambulance, call the police, blah, blah, blah. Bike's already off the road. I'm like calling someone over. I'm like, give me a fucking rag or, something like that. So I can like start compressing, stopping the bleeding, blah, blah, blah. Dude was pretty banged up, man. But, the locals were actually quite helpful once I took charge of the situation. Then they're like, oh, okay, da, da, da. Once the ambulance came, for whatever reason, they were like, okay, cop on cup, and like told me to leave, man. And I was like, all right, sweet. Because I'm pretty sure like, they were looking after me because I would have had to go back to the police station and, write a report and would have fucking taken ages. But, those life skills, man, it gives you peace of mind, right? Having those skills and having that experience to be able to deal with any casualty that comes up that you may come across, man, like that gives you peace of mind knowing that you're capable of helping other people. Did you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And you don't need to be a medic to do that kind of stuff, right? Any kind of switched on ex-soldier is going to be that person, no matter how because you are trained to a standard, and that is not good enough for something like that, especially to be able to take control, because that's what really needs to happen as soon as an accident's happened, right? Get some vital care in and then hand over to the appropriate agency. So, yeah, and I always think of it like this, in that, you have these switched on soldiers leaving the military, and they're the kind of people, because most people, like you say, are the people that just don't know what to do apart from film. So most people are just products of their environment. So if one person starts filming, everyone else is going to start filming and stand there and do fuck all. But it takes there are these few special people in society who make their environment a product of them rather than the other way around, right? So to be able to go in and take control and settle a situation is something that certainly the switched on people from the military are capable of doing. And that it's tough, like you say, it doesn't always, going back to the paperwork thing, it doesn't always translate on paper to a kind of corporate environment or civilian world situation, because we don't constantly live in crisis, right? But that ability to affect people around you in a positive way is something that it is recognized by the top tier kind of corporates, really, and they really do have very good pathways of getting people in, because they recognize that they're very good in leadership scenarios.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Like, this is not a slide on, people that do come across an accident and don't know what to do. They just don't know what they don't know, right? So if you don't know, like, how to react, if you've never been trained in that environment, then, like, you don't have the tools available to be able to have an impact on that situation, So I think that's a great point. If people are listening and you want to be able to help out in a situation, take a basic first aid course. If you come across an accident, you can fucking help someone, and you could potentially save someone's life, man. And like, you don't need a thank you for that. You just know that you've just impacted someone's life.
Yeah, exactly. There's all these courses all around, and mate, the amount of times I've literally thought about going back to South Africa to Ronin to do their paramedics course. Do I fuck need it? I don't need that at all. But to go back, learn to a high standard, really challenge yourself, that is not a given. You really have to give everything to pass that stuff. And then also be in South Africa for 8 weeks, like that is absolutely amazing. Like going on holiday and doing 3 weeks kind of just sat there doing nothing is not what I do, but go on holiday and learn something new. Like I've also thought about doing, like going to the Bahamas and doing yoga instructor course. Am I fuck going to be a yoga instructor? But, I'd love to go on a holiday and learn something new. So these kind of things are out there all the time. And, there's a good saying, isn't it? Most people have done all they're ever going to do. They raise a family, they earn a living, and then they die. But people who are constantly stretching and constantly striving for more, life has a special kind of meaning for them.
Yeah, and that ties back into that personal growth, mate. Like, that is so fucking important to me, man. Like, I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly growing. People, I understand why, but people have had a bad 2020, did have a bad 2020, right? And like at the start of this year, I was like, hey, if you had a bad 2020, what makes you think that 2021 is going to be any different, right? I'll be honest, bro. I had a fucking good 2020. Obviously I had some bad things happen. Had one of my mates took his own life, and my pops, like, health is deteriorating, and blah 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 blah. Like, all these things happened, but my personal growth, my drive to constantly evolve and become better. I'm constantly upgrading, man. It's like I think of myself as, we think about computers, we think about our phones, right? Like, if you never fucking update your phone, you're left with the old software, right? That is now out of date. And I think of myself as that. I'm constantly trying to upgrade. I'm constantly trying to upskill. And if I'm not a fucking better person, if I'm not a better man, potentially partner, coach, human in 5 years than what I am now, then what the fuck have I been doing with my life?
Yeah, exactly. I've got a good mate who's an ex-Royal Marine who I met at university, and he was doing straight from conditioning, who explained it in quite a good way, in that your mind is like a funnel. There's always information trickling out and disappearing. So you've got to always be just throwing information into the top. Even if it's something you already know, you should always be going over it. And you'll know, mate, in the military, you drill things to death. So that it's just second nature, and too many people don't do that. It's that's up to them. I'd be terrible at sitting down and doing fuck all. So again, and exactly that, mate. I had an absolutely banging year last year, absolutely incredible. But then I trust myself, I back myself to thrive in any scenario, in any environment. And it turns out a lot of people are terrible if they can't go to the pub. So it's mate, I'm quite there with you. It's it was a great year for me, and it was challenging in certain times, but I love a challenge, so it was just great.
Yeah, exactly, mate. You're either thriving or surviving.
And there was kind of like, I don't know what it was like in Thailand, but over here it was like, for the most of last year, you were like a pariah if you said that you were, I'm actually okay, I'm happy, I'm enjoying this. So, most people were just like, oh, life sucks. And if I'd get people one-on-one, I'd be like, okay, why does it suck then? Oh, well, I don't know. Are you saying this just because everyone else says it? Like, because you are like uploaded with memes all day that life fucking sucks? Because does it really suck for you? Or do you just think that because everyone else has told you that sucks? And in some cases that was true, in some cases not. And that I think was what last year showed us, is that we're not all the same. There's some people that are capable of just shutting down and being good on their own and just cracking on with their process, and some people are not. And that we're all different. So what I think what we really should do is accommodate all kinds of people, rather than just being like, you're a dick because you can't fucking cope with this, or you're a dick because you're having a good time right now.
Mate, I just, I think it was yesterday, I was listening to a podcast with Daniel Kahneman, who wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow. Incredible guy. And something that he was talking about in the book on the podcast, was that people typically don't have these experiences and these stories that then create beliefs and morals, etc. It's normally the other way around. People normally, something happens, they come up with a conclusion, and then they fill in the gaps with the stories that then justifies that belief. I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I had absolutely trash principles when I was like 15, 16, 17. I didn't care about anything. And I hated anyone that wasn't white and poor. So, mate, I completely agree with you. And then it took a set of circumstances for me to pull my head out my ass, or have it pulled out for me, and like shown the world, shown what real suffering is. And you know, once you can kind of see the big picture, you kind of like, well, why? I don't really hate people. Like, and then so I fully took on those military principles, morals, and values, and I still hold them super high today. And I'm such a preacher, but yeah, I preach to people like civilians and stuff that I work with, being like, okay, well, like, what courage did you show here? Like, what selfless commitment do you have here? Like, you need to be better, and you need to be better in these areas.
That's something I find, like military guys, ex-military, veterans, particularly those who have deployed to, you know, like war-torn countries, or who have faced adversities. And this is something Sai and I touched on in our conversation, is, you know, those guys are willing to have those fucking hard conversations, because if you're going out on patrol, you know that you're going to the Badlands. The last time you were there, your mate was shot, someone lost his leg, blah, 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 blah. Like, if you don't fucking speak your mind, if you don't agree with someone's plan, then there's going to be resentment, and there's not going to be fucking trust, man. So I find those guys, the military guys in particular, are more than willing to not look for confrontation, but they're comfortable in those situations. They're comfortable having those difficult conversations and voicing their opinion and saying, you know what, I don't necessarily agree with this. What are we trying to achieve? How can we potentially, you know, mitigate these risks and allow us to still achieve the mission? You know, have you experienced that? I've definitely experienced that, you know, transitioning from the military space back to the civilian space, having those conversations. And I'm used to having those conversations in the military, man, being part of a sniper team. But, you know, I had to change my how I communicated to civilians since transitioning. The first couple of years, I really struggled with that. Once I discharged from the army and got back in the civilian space, people were just like, what the fuck? This dude's an arsehole. And I was like, do you know what? I'm bringing this stuff up because I care about you and I want to see you do better. That's why I'm having these conversations with you. But, you know, the way that I was presenting that information, it got people's backs up. And it took me a couple of years to figure out that, hey, the way that I'm communicating this, I need to change my communication style to suit the person that I'm talking, so I can still get this information across, but be able to communicate it in the way that, you know, someone's going to be able to absorb it without being offended.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a really good point. And I do it all the time. So if someone is coming up with a plan or the way we're going to do something in the work that I do now, and I don't understand why that they would do that, or what, that doesn't make sense to me, I'll immediately just say, okay, why? Because if you want to do something, anything in life, you should have an understanding or a reason why you're going to do that. It shouldn't just be a guess, or it shouldn't just be, because everyone. That's my worst thing, mate. That is my biggest pet hate, when I say, why are we doing this? Because it's how everyone does it. No. Why are we doing this? Because I hate it. I did a marathon, right? I ran a marathon and I hadn't trained for it, and people were like, well, you can't do this without training for it. I'm like, why? Oh, because it's not what everyone else does. Fuck you, I'm gonna run this marathon. and yeah, mate, it's true though. I just feel like we do ask the difficult questions. And back to that point, when you learn these, is you'll go on patrol, or you'll do the battle plan for the patrol or something, and you look at it and you think, it doesn't fucking make sense to me, and you'll keep it to yourself, and it'll go fucking pear-shaped, and it'll go off, it'll turn into an absolute laser show. And whilst you're sat there sweating your balls off in a fucking ditch, just thinking, I wish I'd said something. I wish I'd fucking said something. Every time, forevermore after that, you will always say something. You'll say that, shut up. I'm not fucking doing that again. And I guarantee you will have had this. Everyone has had this where someone stands up and says, fuck you, I'm not doing that again.
Yep. That's why AARs are so important. The after action review, man. It's like, hey, we could have fucking mitigated that risk or that circumstance, that scenario prior to stepping off on patrol. You know, and this is why I think asking those difficult questions, having those hard conversations with people is so important, man, because that brings clarity, right? If you're being asked to do something and you don't understand why, then you're not going to give it your best chance. You're not going to give it your best shot, man. But if you understand, hey, I'm doing this because the boss wants to achieve this. Dude, I've spoken about this on like an individual solo podcast that I recorded about like some of the best mentors and leaders that I've had in my life. But I'll bring it up here again because my patrol base commander in Afghanistan was one of the best leaders that I worked with. And he would literally go, all right, boys, I want, the leaders from each team to come in to the command post. And he's going, all right, tomorrow we're going to go out. This is what I want to achieve. Engineers, what are you guys going to do? Snipers, what are you guys going to do? Security section, what are you guys going to do? Signaler, what are you going to do? Mortarmen, what are you guys going to do? And we would go, boom, boom, boom. We'd all have our individual input, and then someone would say something, and maybe, engineers would go, oh, we'll go here. We're going to search this area here. And then snipers go, all right, we don't have, field of view in that area. So let's change our position. Let's go over here so we can better support you. And then the security section would be like, all right, well then there's going to be a blind spot here. So this is what we're going to cover. And the fucking boss goes, hey, this is what we want to achieve. And then all the individual command elements go, all right, this is what the boss wants to achieve. This is what we're going to do to play our fucking role as a part of a team. And then the boss is like, all right, boys, good stuff. Come back later. Go and give your warning order to your boys. Right, we come back 6 hours later, and then boss would literally go through his fucking orders for that battle plan.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing that I had to learn when I transitioned to corporate world or civilian world was you can't just say, fuck you, I'm not doing that. There has to be you have to say it in a different way, obviously, because fluffy little earmuffs. Yep. But it's man, I just completely forgot what I was going to say then. I was going to go a real long tangent then, I expect.
You've got to say it respectfully.
Yeah,
but, dude, I think let me see if I can jog your memory. Was it something to do with like being part of a team? Everyone has a role and a responsibility to play, and you've got to have clarity from the top down. The man on the fucking ground needs to know what's going on so that he can make a decision without getting a direct order. Yeah,
exactly that. And when I started out I was an insurance broker, and I'm just about to move. But when I started out, I went into there I'm working with 22, 23-year-olds who are the same level as me. And I had no problem with that whatsoever. I personally think that there is not a person on this planet that I cannot learn at least one thing from. So I went in there with real open-minded, and these kind of like guys who are a lot younger than me, guys and girls actually, a lot younger than me, being like, okay, well, we need to drill this, or we need to do this before you go and do it for real. And we're going to do it till we get it right. I'm real sorry. And I'm like, what are you apologizing for? Let's do it. Let's go until I get it right. And they're like, okay, that's right. And let's go. Let's do it again. Like, and it's just the military in you where you want to have those difficult conversations. But so many people, I guess, are terrified to be told, or to be put on the spot, or to be told that you could probably do better here. But a lot of soldiers, I guess, or ex-soldiers are very good at being chest poked and told, you need to be better here. And, it makes you the best person that you can possibly be. Like the best thing that I love about my manager right now and she's one of the best managers of people, best managers I've ever had. The best thing is because the second, the smallest thing I do that could be better, why did you do this? You need to do that. And it brings me out to be the best possible version of myself, in my opinion. So yeah, that would be something I would advise people, is 100%, never be afraid of bad feedback.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And like, you always take a lot of people take criticism people think criticism is a bad word, man. It's only a fucking bad word if you attach a negative story to it, if you attach a negative connotation, right? Now, think about this. If your manager gives you criticism, instead of thinking about it as criticism, think about it as feedback, right? She knows that you're fucking good at your job, right? But she knows that you can also be better at your job. So she's giving you that criticism / feedback to help you become a better person and a better employee. She's doing that because she cares about you. She sees more in you than you may see in yourself. Rather than just resting on your laurels and fucking floating, she's giving you this feedback to allow you to grow, to develop, to become a better employee, to become a better person.
Yeah, and it goes into, again, happiness and mindfulness, because the more she demands from me, and, I can work for 6-7 hours on something, and to the point where I'm like, she is not going to pick up one thing on this. There's not going to be one single thing. And I send it off to double check or something, some contract or something, to double check it. And she'll be like, boom, 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 boom. And I'll be so angry. And like, she knows I'm not angry at her. I'm angry at myself, because I'm like, fuck, I should have seen that. And, oh man. And, like, when I talk about making mistakes, should never, ever be afraid of making a mistake. But you should definitely be afraid of continually making the same mistakes. And that's something that I have adopted since I was about 16. I was like, I will make mistakes in my life. That then was just an excuse to fuck up. But like, yeah, you'll make mistakes in your life, but just don't make the same mistakes over and over again. And people do that a lot with relationships, and right?
Yeah. Yeah, mate, 100%, man, 100%. And, I've spoken about, taking ownership, being accountable, taking responsibility for your own actions, right? And like, I learned this the hard way as well, bro, because when you take ownership of, your actions, your behaviors, your decisions, right, that gives you the power to then be able to go, all right, well, I fucked up here. What can I do? I put myself in this situation. What can I do to change this environment, change my circumstances, all right, and maybe make some different decisions, put some different actions in place to move me in the right direction, right? So I've told the story before about being in Afghanistan and going out on patrol, man, and it was the middle of winter. We had a fucking high operational tempo. We'd had a number of blokes had been, injured. Our interpreter had been killed. It was the middle of winter, man. It was freezing cold. As snipers, we're the first ones out. We're the last ones back. So, we're stepping off out on patrol, making sure that we're in Overwatch position before the boys go out. We're targeting key areas of interest where potentially the Taliban may lay IEDs and target our boys as they step into the green zone, cross the aqueducts, etc. So we stepped out on patrol one day, and it was like, we'll probably delayed like maybe 20, 30 minutes or something like that. And dude, I just took off my backpack, which had like, my binoculars, my spotting scope, my first aid kit, my fluids, my drugs, etc., etc. I took that off to give my shoulders a rest before we stepped off, man. This was probably like, I don't know, 3:30 in the morning or something like that. I'm fucking tired, man. All right. Comes over the radio. Yeah, boys, good to go. Stepped off, man. Totally forgot to put my backpack back on. Right. Fucking idiot. Stepped off. Probably 20 minutes later, something like that. I'm like, I realized, bro, it just clicked in my mind, and I was like, fuck. And I was the lead scout of my team, right? And I'm like, straight over the radio, I'm like, Tamps. He's like, what's up, bro? And I was like, mate, I really apologize, man. Like, I left my first aid kit. It's got my binoculars, got my spotting scope, got everything, like mission essential stuff. It's back on base, man. And he's like, it crossed my mind to not say anything, right? And that was less than 10 seconds, man. I was like, fucking own it. Because if something goes down and you haven't told your fucking team leader that you don't have that equipment, that mission essential equipment, something happens, that's on your fucking conscience for the rest of your life. Own it right now. Fucking speak up. Say something. Call Tamps. Hey, bro, I fucked up. And he goes, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like, yeah, I know. And he goes, crack on. Let's go. Let's get in position. Because he knew that I didn't have that equipment, right? But we would be able to adapt if something did happen. Because he knew that I didn't have the equipment. All right, cool. That's going to change maybe some of our protocols. Maybe that's going to change some of our actions on our standard operating procedures, right? And I had to fucking tell him that. And like from that moment, man, that never happened again. Right? I made sure my shit was squared away. So, you know, I owned that mistake, man. But then I learned from it, and I made sure that it never fucking happened again. And dude, he came up to me afterwards and he's like, thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it, man. You know, like, I think that's powerful, bro, to own every fucking action, every decision that, you know, has essentially led you up to where you are right now in your life.
Yeah, you're exactly right there. And you would have said that knowing that you could most likely have got a punch in the throat. And the moral courage that you get from being even like 18, 19-year-old kids as soldiers have this, right? That if they fuck up in some way, or they do something, or they leave a magazine somewhere around, like, do you know what? I fucked up. I'm sorry. Like, won't happen again. Take the punch and then just get on with it. Don't ever fucking do it again. And that's something I had an instructor talking about basic training. I had an instructor that was like, don't ever apologize to me. Don't ever say you're sorry. It's a sign of weakness. Just tell me you'll never do it again. And like, because so many, when you're in training, you want to just do anything to not get thrashed. And you'd be like, you know, I've forgotten like my jacket or something like that. I'm real sorry. And he's like, don't ever fucking apologize to me. Like, it's a sign of weakness. Just don't ever do it again. And yeah, mate, so many lessons I learned from those people. And to think that at that time they were 24, they were around 24. Those were some of the scariest people I'd ever come across. And yeah, I still to this day would not want to ever come across those guys because they terrify the shit out of me.
Yeah. All right, sweet. Let's circle back, man, and let's go into you becoming a medic, and then how long were you a medic for, and then what did you do? You said you went to Kenya and then Afghanistan. Is that correct?
Yeah. So passed my medical training in 2009. Went to unit. Went kind of pretty much into the rotation to get ready to go to Afghanistan. So then went to Kenya, deployed to Kenya with B Company, 3rd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment, and was their kind of medic, or one of their medics, and I was a very baby junior medic. And I had unbelievable guys to look up to and learn from. One of them had done 2 previous tours with them. In fact, the tour before had been evacuated like 2 months in because he got mortared and fragged in the ass. Another guy was just a really on it medic, was really good. And actually the tour we were preparing for, he ended up getting a guy with a gunshot wound to the head and saving the guy's life. So like unbelievably amazing medics and that goes into what I think of as like the people you surround yourself with, demanding the best from you. If you are not around people that demand the best from you, you're wasting your time. So yeah, then did Kenya, did a whole other mess of exercises, getting ready to go to Afghanistan. Then I went, and yeah, it was just one of those tours where I was with a company from the Parachute Regiment, and we just went out and we had a few objectives over the tour, but the most thing was just, you know, you're going to live in a checkpoint, and you're going to a tiny little checkpoint in the middle of nowhere, and you're going to fucking patrol around it and getting scraps here and there, but mostly you're going to stag on, you're going to eat, you're going to sleep, and you're going to repeat.
Yeah. There's not much to do on a kind of like combat outpost or a patrol base in Afghanistan. No.
You see, people think it's all glamorous, but it was 95% boredom, 5% action. And then, yeah.
Let's talk about getting to Afghanistan. When did you get there? What was it like on the ground? How long were you there for? Talk me into the lead up to 4th of July, 2013. And then we'll go into detail on that day.
Yeah, for sure. So my second tour was different. So, and there was only probably a 2-year gap between first and second. So I did my Class 1 medics course. I did my Army PTI, so Army Physical Training Instructor course, which is, as you'll know, it's just something you kind of do on the side if you're fit. And then you'll take the squad runs that you will go on. So I did that. So then I started kind of really like getting fitter and fitter and fitter. And then I dislocated my knee. So my patella went right around the back of my leg, and I punched it back into place and did so much damage to my knee. And I was like, couldn't really run for about a year. So essentially I was being dragged into a tour that they'd had me down on the Orbat for the whole battle group. as one of the medics, but I was no longer going out with the cavalry, so Simon's unit. I was going out on the same tour, but I was going to go and sit in a hospital and stay there. So I did that. So I went out, and I was kind of like in the back end of my recovery from this knee injury. And yeah, I'd probably missed out on surgery so that they could send me there. Went and sat in the hospital. After a couple of weeks, there was a huge explosion in the north, and some like young girl medic, bless her, like I think had her back broken in an explosion, so she got extracted. I went and replaced her. And then, mate, it's actually quite jokes. And I think that this is probably why I did that thing on the 4th of July, because I was never really one where I could follow orders if I saw it a different way. I was the most annoying person to deal with, I imagine, because we were just there doing nothing, mate. It was so terrible. And it was like the last combat tour. But we were just getting ready to shut down and pull out of Afghanistan. So I'm sat there thinking, this is a waste of my fucking time. And then I had this bell-end doctor there, who was just making my life harder and harder and harder for no reason. And I snapped one day, picked up a chair and lobbed it at his head. And he was like a captain, right? So you can't really do that with officers. So they tried to discharge me from the army then. They were like, yeah, mate, they were like, get this guy back to Camp Bastion. It's fucking not going to serve another day in my army. Went and sat back in the hospital. 2 days later, basically one of the girl medics, who was out with the cavalry and the brigade reconnaissance force, had like tib and fib snap, on patrol. I think she's just walking over a ditch and then snapped both tib and fib. But, you know, like, this is why it's a bit difficult, you know, like, I think she was probably like piss wet through about 50 kilos and she's carrying 54 kilos of equipment. So, you know, it's physiology at times, isn't it? And it snapped tib and fib. And luckily I was there, and the sergeant major was like, we'll take this guy back, thank you very much, and pulled me into the reconnaissance compound. So I went from like real low to being like, oh yeah, I'm back where I should be. And I'd done like a lot more rehab out there at that time. So this is probably 2 months into the tour now. My knees looking good. I've been smashing them leg days, mate, and that was it. Like I smashed a ton of leg days to get my knee right, really. And yeah, ended up, I think it was like
just rehabbing the fuck out of it. You're with a good crew, you're in a good environment, you're thriving.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really with a good bunch. I was, you know, it was just classic like medic, isolated. Like I didn't really know the guys I was with or anything like that. But I was just in my process, you know. I was like disciplined and training hard. And yeah, there's that saying, isn't there? It's better to be ready for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be ready. So I was ready as fuck. I was young and I was fucking hungry to get out there and do it all again. So, and it was a good gig, you know. The Brigade Reconnaissance Force is a good gig. Like you go out and, you know, you're always going to go out and have some kind of effect on the enemy rather than just dominate the ground. So, yeah, that was how it came into being.
Just pause there for a second so we can explain that to. Just so we can explain that to the listeners. So the BRF, like you guys were pretty much like based at a base. Was it Bastion you guys were at?
Yeah.
Or another base?
Yeah, Camp Bastion.
Yeah, and then you guys would like get intelligence that, you know, there's a fucking key leader in a specific area is going to be there for a certain period of time. All right, sweet. This is a time-sensitive mission. We need to fucking jump on the helicopters. We need to get out. We need to get boots on the ground. We need to fucking cordon it off. We need to get this dude like tonight. Let's rock and roll. So you roll out, helicopters, do your thing, get back on the helicopters, back to Camp Bastion, grab a feed, get a good night's sleep, fucking do it all again. Get ready, always be prepared.
Yeah, mate, it was exactly that. And that's fucking glory, right? That's what you sit there playing Call of Duty and there you are, you're doing it. And you know, I'm not going to lie, it was not a bad job to do. And, you know, it's like you gear up, you do like a 2-day intelligence cycle where you really just psych up, go over the plan, your part in the plan, your job, where do you sit in the plan, where do you sit on the ground in relation to others and stuff like that. And you go through it. And then I would, you know, from my little corner of the sky, I would train the guys up on some new medical procedure. And it's quite ironic because right before that op, I was training the guys up. We linked up with the Green Berets that were over on the other side of Camp Bastion over in the American side. So we linked up the Green Berets medic and we were just like fucking with our blokes basically. And I was like, what? I was like, what can I make my guys do? And then he was like, what can I make my guys do? And you know those nasal pharyngeal tubes, those
Yep.
the airway. Basically, if you put an airway in someone, it
Yep.
goes in your nose. Basically, like the width of your little finger. I had them
Yep.
putting them in my blokes, which is jokes, but it's, oh man, that's a horrible feeling. That truly feels like getting fucked in the nose.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, but basically, right before that op, I did this thing called a surgical cric, or surgical cricothyroidotomy, which basically means you slash this little membrane in your throat here. If all this is mangled and you don't really have an airway to work with, you'll slash a little thing here, put a tube in, and magic, you can breathe. And I was teaching the guys this, and Simon was like, I would rather fucking die than have that done to me. And it's quite funny because we went on the op a few days later, and I was literally had my crike kit right there because he's just been entry and exit here. I'm like, I'm gonna have to fucking crike this guy. I know I'm gonna have to crike him because he's not bleeding out. He's bleeding, but he wasn't bleeding out. And I thought that airway is fucked, and I sat there and I was like looking at it, just thinking, oh, I'm coming for you. I'm fucking coming for you. But yeah, yeah, mate, it was quite funny, and he knew it. I said
let's pause there for a little bit because you've obviously skipped a lot of stuff, which Simon and I have covered in another podcast. So I'll have that linked in the show notes if anyone wants to go back and listen to Simon's side of the story where he gets shot in the throat, falls off a fucking roof, lands on a goat, kills it, thinks he's like got a couple minutes left to live, and then like all of a sudden you're there next to him, and he's like, "What the fuck? Where'd you just come from?" So you guys obviously step out. You're on helicopters. You get inserted. You start patrolling in towards the target compound. Snipers are up in an Overwatch position. You guys, a few rounds start kicking off, and then you hear over the radio, Simon's been shot. What's going through your mind?
Yeah, it pretty much happened exactly like that. So I'm over in a different cluster of compounds because we moved out and gone on to a different objective, and I'm just there because that's where most of the blokes are, right? So I'm where most guys can get hit. I'm there, and I didn't think the snipers would get whacked. That's not a sly jab, but yeah, and basically, yeah, and that.
Hey, I was with two of my blokes got shot. Two of my blokes in my 4-man team got shot, bro. So it was always a bit of a joke in our teams as well. It was like, oh fuck, going out with Cobes, yeah, be careful. The last 2 blokes have been shot.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? Like, on a serious note, that was an amazing podcast to listen to because he said so much stuff that I'd never heard him say, and it was incredible to hear, and maybe very emotional, mate, to hear him say it and hear from his perspective. And obviously I always know my perspective, so I'm hoping I can have some kind of a similar impact on him and some of the other guys. But yeah, so I've got to him or I've heard he's been hit. So yeah, I've got my kind of like radio on, which is like short distance radio. And yeah, one of the machine gunner that was with him has just gone, oh, sorry, I'm going to butcher the accent, so I'm not going to bother. But he was just a strong Mancunian guy, and he was like, Si's just been whacked in the neck. And so immediately I had the section commander there, and he had a lot of kit on, right? So he was weighed right down. I mean, I was carrying 65 kilos, and I swear he was in excess of that. And he was fit as well, Fijian guy. And yeah, it's just come over the radio. Everyone's heard it, right? So everyone's just like, just as the contacts come in on us, I'm like, fuck this. Like, okay, yeah, just make my way back. And it was, I guess, maybe from planning, like where it was like constantly like, okay, well, we're going to be here. We're going to be here. We're going to be here. If something happens, I'm just going to get to you, right? I'm just going to get up and I'm going to go. And the boys knew I was fit enough. I was one of the fittest in the squadron, right? So they knew I could make it. And yeah, to do it in a contact though was probably not wise, but and certainly out of the SOPs, right? And that was where, probably looping back to me being a mischievous little prick, is that if I didn't see the reason behind a rule, which obviously is a clear very reason, because if I got hit, we'd all be fucked. But yeah, so like, I just got up and I was like, right, well, I either get to him in 2 minutes or he's going to die. So that was it. I just got up and just made my way off.
You've said this. You've said this a couple times, man, in this podcast, bro. You're like, I back myself. It fucking came out right there and then, mate. And like, I'm sure Sai is super grateful for that. And I'm sure you're grateful for that and how it turned out, man. I'm going to fucking back myself. I'm going to run 300 meters, weighed down with 65 kilos in whatever, like 50-degree heat to get to my mate who's just been fucking shot in the throat.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, like there was no specific thing that I'd done in the past where I'd run with that kit to know that I could do that. But, you know, I'd fucking done other stuff and, you know, it was either make it or don't make it. And yeah, I just got up, did it, got to him and I'm presented with this injury that doesn't make fucking logical sense because he's got an entry and an exit and they both look the same. So I didn't know the entry and exit. And the whole time I thought, okay, well, he's been hit with some frag that's pinged in front of him and it's split and gone in either side. That's the only logical explanation because, you know, he's talking and he's not catastrophically bleeding. So what is going on here? And, yeah, basically just made up a bluff dressing because I wanted to get pressure on the bleeding, but you can't get pressure on the bleeding because I would have occluded his airways. So I just fucking looked at my kit and was like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? And pulled out some sniper tape, pulled out a dressing, cut it up so there was a couple of pads, then taped them the width apart that I wanted to have, and then used the elastic from those dressings to get it round so that essentially the dressings kind of brought it out a little bit and I could get a little pressure on. But I did spend quite a bit of time with my fingers in his neck, and that's a constant joke that I've had a finger and a thumb inside him.
Oh, mate, I love that. That's something I miss actually, is like the military humor, man. Like, it gets pretty fucking dark, right? Like, I've laughed through, you know, some of the most boring fucking mundane things that like people would be like, that's not even funny. Why are you laughing at that? But then I've just laughed at some of the like most stupid, ridiculous things where you should be fucking like fearful for your life. You know, there's bullets whizzing around you and, you know, you can fucking hear the crack of the bullet as it whizzes by your head, man. The dirt's being fucking kicked up around you and you're like laughing with your mate going, fuck, that's close.
But yeah, mate, on a more serious note, there isn't really a higher answer that I can give here, like in terms of how I felt. Like, I didn't feel anything. I just felt like there was a job and I had to do the job. So I head down, got the job done, and I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel overconfident. I just was like, okay, here's what I need to do, and just quickly had a plan in my head. Oh, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to do it. There's been other times, don't get me wrong, where, in fact, later that day, where I was doing something and I thought, I'm going to die here. I'm definitely going to die. I'm going to die. Like, literally, if we go down there, I'm going to die. Which you'll be able to relate to, right? You go down a certain alley and you think, oh, I'm not fucking going to see the other side of this. But yeah, on that day, in that moment, it just all clicked. It made sense. And I was just fucking making it up as I went along, if I'm being quite honest. And when I just thought, you're not going to die, I was like, you're not going to die, but that crike kit might be coming for you. And, you know, he was at ease. And like, the good thing about some medics get real in their little pigeonhole in their corner, that they're the most important thing and what they do is the most important thing and stuff. But I could see the big picture, right? I was like, we need our sniper back because our walls are about to get overrun and I'm about to be on Al Jazeera with my head held up, right? So, like, I was like, mate, are you good? And he was itching to get back in the firefight. I was having a hard time to keep him with me, right? So, like, in the end, I was like, right, I need to make something that's going to last. And then how badly can things go wrong in 3 to 5 minutes? So I was
Getting
like,
back
mate,
in the
just
fight, bro.
Go get back up there, fucking kill someone and come back and see me. And and that was exactly how it worked. And
yep.
Because it was so hot, because they were literally from all sides trying to get over the walls and shit. Like, I couldn't get them extracted for 90 minutes, and that's a long time to have a casualty for, really. Especially a casualty that's like that.
Outside of the golden hour, bro.
Yeah, so that was from a medical perspective, because I thought I've not really done. You have that, right? You do something special, but at the moment and for like a year later, you're just like, I didn't really do anything. I just fucking I did what I would have done any other time. I didn't really do anything that special.
Yep.
But the hospital made a big deal of it, and that was probably played into me
Yep.
getting the MC, was because the second in command of the squadron got pulled aside by the surgeons and said, whoever that fucking medic was, like, they need to be recognized for that, because that was outrageous. When really, I just fucking made it up.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Like, it's like something's come up, right? Like, all right, here's a problem. I need to provide a solution, and I'm just going to fucking do whatever's necessary right now and figure it out along the way, man. And luckily, things worked out in your favor and in Simon's favor, and, for the benefit of the entire troop, that, you got there, you were able to patch him up, get him back in the fight to, then start fucking taking dudes out and eliminating threats, man. Like, that's incredible, bro. And, I understand exactly where you're coming from, because when I was nominated for my award, I was just like, I just fucking did my job. Like, any of the boys would have done the same thing. Like, if you're gonna award me, you should be awarding all these guys as well. Like, I didn't do anything special. I was just like Johnny on the spot that just had to fucking come up with a solution for a problem that had just presented itself, right? Like, and it wasn't for years and years that, like, I never talked about it. And it was like, it was always my mates that were like, hey man, like, what you did was fucking incredible and blah, blah. And I was like, you would have done the same thing. Like, yeah, I might say that, but I don't actually know that in the fucking time and in the location with that situation, like, unfolding as it did, man. So, you should be proud of what you achieved, bro, and to be recognized by, higher command that are like, you saved this dude's life. You got him back on the job, which then potentially saved more guys' life within the troop to, bring these guys home, man. Like, that's fucking incredible, bro. And you should be really proud of that, mate.
Yeah, mate, I am. And don't get me wrong, I go back to what I said at the start, in that I was the same person the day before that happened, the day it happened, and the day after. I was the same person, but in most other people's eyes, I was a different person, right? So that for me is like looking past what you can see about someone. I think of myself as a pretty good judge of character, and I can look at someone and I think they've probably got something quite special. They've just not been tested at this time. And I've had people that have had a real problem with it at times. When I came back home and I'm on the piss or on the lash and on a night out, and people come up to me like, "Oh, you're fucking amazing! Like, I just don't know how you do that." And I was like, "Mate, like, until you've been tested, you don't have any idea what you're capable of." And most people won't ever feel that, and that's just the way it is. But I think that human beings are more resilient than a lot of people give them credit for. And, you honestly are capable of, when you're really, push comes to shove, people are like, "Oh, I can't run anymore. I got bad knee." I was like, well, if I put a line behind you, you'd fucking run. Which I'm sure you've said many a times.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. All right, cool. So, then you continue on your tour in Afghanistan. How much longer were you there for before you returned home?
That was the halfway point. So, we actually had our rest and recuperation period straight after that. So we then had a week to wind down and, process it. And then we flew home for 2 weeks. I got absolutely smashed stupid for 2 weeks, and then went back out, and then did 3 months of the tour. Came home. There was flashes of like it real hairy. And then the last day or the last stop was fucking grim. We lost one of the guys, unfortunately, one of the incoming guys. And then came home, and then it's classic military stuff. They're like, "Okay, we need to put you on a promotion course." So post-tour leave is not really going to be a thing for you. You've got 10 days off, and then we're going to put you... Mate, that was horrendous, by the way, coming from the desert of like 45 degrees to then go in November in Hampshire in southern England at like middle of the night. It's like fucking -3. That was horrendous change of climate. But yeah, and then really it was, I was prepping for a specialist branch of the military to go on that selection. And then I signed off probably, I don't know, 7 months later after coming home. And then, so applied to leave the military.
we'll talk about your transition process in a moment. But before that, how did you find out? When did you find out that you'd been nominated for the Military Cross?
Yeah, so I had some idea that something was coming. And then, this is quite a funny story, actually. So whilst it's 2014, the beginning of 2014, and at that Christmas, I was tired of being a really poor soldier because I think I was still getting paid as a private or something. And I was like, how can I earn money? How can this guy earn money? And I was in okay shape. So I Googled how can I, and it was like, you can be a butler in the buff. So, the geezers with the collars and the topless and the cuffs and stuff. And they basically go around at hen do's giving drinks to women.
Yeah.
So I did that, mate. So I was in central London doing a job and I'm coming back from this job where I've just done I think I did a hen do, on like I don't even know what night it was, maybe a Thursday or something. And Simon has messaged me. He's like, we're out in West London, a place called Hammersmith. We're out. Come meet us. And I was like, well, I've obviously got kit on the piss kit in my backpack. That's something I always tell people. You should never go anywhere without wet kit, warm kit, and on the piss kit. And so I've basically and I'm on a motorbike, right? So I've pulled up outside, literally right outside this club in Hammersmith, and have just gone around the corner in a bush, got changed all out of this bike stuff into this on the piss kit, and quickly done my hair in a car window, packed it all back in my bag, given it to the cloakroom person, and then I'm just like, just at this thing, and Simon's like, mate, we've done it. We're getting some swingers. We're getting some medals. And I was like, fuck. And we got absolutely sourced that night in this private table area. And, he had some compensation money that he was splashing. So we had the vodka flowing and all kind of, mate, it was messy. So that's how I found out. Yeah.
And what happened the next day? Yeah.
Oh, mate, I can't remember. But yeah, so basically that was on the Thursday, and then I think I was on leave the following week. But on the Monday morning, the colonel had sent someone down to get me out of bed. So he's like knocked on the door and he's like, the colonel needs to see you right now. And I was like, for fuck's sake. And so I had to shave and get in kit and just go and see this belter of a colonel. And I went up there and he was like, yeah, and Simon was on a course, so I didn't do it with him at that time, and he came off the awards list at the same time. So I was just in this room, and the colonel was like, right, he said it in such a dickish way. He was like, someone has seen fit to award you the Military Cross, and I was like, fuck you. And then he was like, your leave's been cancelled. You need to go and get into central London because you're going to do a week with the media and interviews. We did radio interviews, TV interviews, then live TV interviews. And we had like a day of training. But what that really meant was me and Simon together got fucking shit-faced in London for a whole week. So I probably had about 4 or 5 hours sleep that week. And you can look back at some of the old footage of me doing TV interviews. Mate, I lost my beret. I was sitting in this room on the Friday, and I've had enough of talking to people about the same story by this time. And I think we got in at like 5:30 in the morning, and everyone's getting ready, and we were leaving at 6 a.m. So all these people were ready, and this sergeant major's there who was supposed to be keeping control of us, and he's like, you two taking the fucking piss, go and get changed now. So we got changed, and then we get on the coach and we go there, and then I'm on this couch waiting to be interviewed. I think it was for like Good Morning Britain or Sky News or something, which are quite big outlets over here. And mate, I'm sitting on the sofa and I've just gone straight to sleep like that. And I have my beret on and it fell down the side of the sofa. And then someone's come to me and they're like, oh yeah, you're live now. Let's go and get you mic'd up and stuff. I was like, yeah, no worries. And then I'm like, oh fuck, I haven't got my fucking beret on. And Simon didn't screw the nut and had his on. So I was just there, mate, steaming, just speaking, just absolute shit. Luckily Simon carried it, but mate, I was fucked.
I've seen that I've seen that clip, bro, where you asked the chick that was interviewing you if she was single.
Yeah, that happened. But yeah, basically, mate, I think that was the last one of the day. So that was the last one on the Friday lunch. So we'd been, mate, I'd had a week of it, and I was honestly tired of it. And yeah, Channel 4, bless them, mate.
Yeah.
Channel 5, and they like this woman, and bear in mind I couldn't see them, right? So we just had this mic, and we were on this like rugby pitch or whatever in this camp in the middle of London,
okay.
and they're like filming, and so we can just hear them through a thing. I can't see her at all. And then she's just like, she sets me up for it, right? She's like, oh, I bet your girlfriends will be, sad that you're spending so much time together. And I was like, I'm single, are you? And yeah, mate, because I was just fucking tired of having the same conversations by that point.
Yeah, all right, cool. Let's transition. I have heard that you missed an opportunity to speak to the Prime Minister at 10 Downing Street. Tell me that story.
Yeah, I can't really remember why, but I think we just thought he was an absolute belter at the time. So it was David Cameron, and we were like, we have done one of the most like saucy things here. So if he has any idea who's in this room, he'll come and speak to us. We're not going to go and speak to him. That's the kind of like saucy attitude you have when you're a soldier. You're like, mate, I ain't fucking going to you. You can come to me. And so we just sat in the corner drinking orange juice. And there was this room of people and stuff, and the Prime Minister's just walking around speaking to people, and we were just sat there just like, yeah, mate. And so, yeah, we never spoke to him in the end. But 10 Downing Street is lovely. The ceilings are super high, which we're both over 6 foot. Really appreciate it.
I heard a little rumor that you decided that taking a shit at 10 Downing Street was going to be more important than meeting the Prime Minister.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I did do that. Yeah. Yeah, man, I did do that. Yeah, I shot a shit at 10 Downing Street.
Add that to the resume, bro.
Yeah, I will.
All right, cool, mate. So let's start transitioning towards your transition from the military to civilian space. How long did you stay in the army for after you were awarded that? What did you do? Why did you decide to discharge from the army? And then talk to me about your experience going through that transition period, like any difficult periods you went through, mental health implications, losing your purpose, losing your direction, your self-identity, etc. Talk me through that process.
Yeah, so I think I'll try and go linear, and I'll try and go from the beginning. So it was probably about 2 weeks after that time with the media where I'd got fucked around, and I was like, no more, I've had enough of this. Like, I had a month's leave, and the military are great at doing this. They're like, no, like you're just about to go on leave, and they're like, nah. And I was being held back to do something fucking stupid and pointless, and so I was like, right, that's it. I can do something else. And then I applied to leave, was looking at what I was going to do. And at that time, I was like, I want to be a PE teacher. So I'm going to have to go to university. I'm going to have to do all the stuff to get ready to go to university because I didn't finish school. And I was super excited. Then the army have this thing where they wanted to get as much blood from me as possible. So they sent me all over for that last, as long as they could. But obviously you have to serve a year's notice. And then I went and did the Ronin South Africa course, the bodyguard course. I had no intention of doing it, but at that time I'd been accepted to university to study sports science and nutrition. And I'd essentially thought I had some cash, and I thought, well, I'm going to do this bodyguard course because it will be a good backup if university doesn't work out. I'd never written an essay before. I didn't even finish school. So I thought, well, it's be prudent to have a good backup in case, I'm a moron. And so I did that course. That was fucking tough. That was real tough, mate. I could do a separate podcast just on that course. That was grim. I got tasered on that course. It's horrible. But that taught me a lot. It taught me a lot, that course did. And then, so then I kind of discharged, moved into London, and then I was so organized. I was so planned. I had my budget, had a job squared, and there was this guy who was going to, I was going to be this boot camp instructor running a couple of parks in London. and I knew what I was going to get paid and stuff. Literally the day I discharged, or that week I discharged, stopped taking my call, and he's never texted me or spoke to me since. So the whole foundations of how of my plan for those 6 months between military and university fell away underneath me. So I literally had to go and just, again, you use any skills that you can. So I was doing a few private medical events. For the most part, I had to work the doors. So I was a bouncer in West London, and just had to use, because I had the close protection, the bodyguard course. I could work as door security. So yeah, I was just doing that for 6 months, and it sucked dick. But again, it taught me about more about being humble, right? Because people live in London, they think it's this amazing place, but you think that because you're there going out for dinners and stuff. When you're working behind the scenes, it's literally all immigrants that are waiters, waitresses, security, and stuff like that. So I was just with all these Polish people and stuff, just making friends, and then started university, and that was really where my decline happened, and I didn't know or realize until probably about 2 years after, which is when my girlfriend, who I'd been with and lived with from probably we'd been together from probably 6 months before I left the military. So she'd been through that whole transition. We lived together then in London. She basically left me. She was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm gone. And that was my whole support structure. And was this because of your slow decline that potentially you didn't see, and all these little things started ticking over, and it got to a point where she's like, fuck man, you're not the same person anymore. I don't want to hang around. I want to go off and do my own thing and let you figure out your own shit. Is that kind of what happened, or am I? Yeah, I'd say so. No, yeah, pretty much I'd say so. I just wasn't the same person anymore. And I turned into this just horrible person to be around. I just wasn't an enjoyable person to be around. And there was bits of other things, but nothing no cheating or anything like that. So yeah, that was kind of what happened. And I was a hole, mate. And this deep underlying thing that had been getting gradually worse. And there were signs 6 months prior or something, she'd come and hug me from behind and saying, come on, why are you being so grumpy? And I'd be like, well, how about I shoot one of your friends in the face and I'll see how you adapt to it. And little things like that are little pointers. If people were saying that around you, I'd fucking raise some flags, because those are little pointers that someone is struggling to deal with things inside. And I'd say stuff like that. I thought I had the right to be fucking miserable, and everyone, because I was Wes Masters Military Cross, I was this fucking high profile person, people should just deal with it. And that's just not the way the world works. And so yeah, essentially, mate, I was in an absolute hole, and I'll probably pause there so I can carry on. I can carry on from there. But if you've got any questions or anything around that, leading up to that, you can. I guess you can ask them now.
Yeah, man. I wanna ask, do you think that she did you a favor by leaving you and basically pointing out that you were being a fucking cunt, and this slow progression of becoming a worse person, and, being on your high horse, and, maybe treating her like shit and not giving her, the love and respect that she was looking for, maybe that her leaving was the catalyst for you to be like, all right, well, fuck, I've gone too far down that slippery slope?
Oh, undoubtedly. And just not in that way as well, mate. So, the military strike, it's like a bubble, right? And, there was so much that she taught me in that 2-year period that was this is not an okay thing to say. People will not think you're joking here. They think you are genuinely sexist, or they will so, I learned a lot from her of my transition to becoming a civilian, right? Because I joined up at 18. I came from a very violent and savage background. So, I thought it was okay to kind of say these and joke about these kind of things when it's just really not okay in normal life in society. So, I learned a lot from her on that end, and took it all on board. But then similarly, when it fell apart, And I said, look, what's going on here? Why has this happened? Why have you done this? And she was like, boom, 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 boom. This is why. Um, I guess you can react in one of two ways, but I was like, right, there, I no longer have any fucking excuse for not being the best possible bloke I can be. So I was like, right, I need to be more caring, more empathetic. For a start, I need to go and do some charity work, right? For some purpose, because that's pretty much what you do in the military, right? You go around and you help people who can't help themselves. So you, I was like,
You serve
I
others,
need to
man. You
get
put
that.
everyone else. You put other people before yourself.
Exactly, and I need to feel that again. I need to have that purpose, because otherwise, who the fuck am I? Who am I becoming? Am I just this guy who was this important person and now I'm not? Like, am I just going to ride the wave of that for the rest of my life? Like, because I don't see that ending well. So yeah, essentially that was it, mate. And I had she not done that, had she done anything else, had she stayed and said, you need to do this, I wouldn't have done it. So that was the only way. And mate, that hit me real hard. I was suicidal for about 6 months. There was one moment where I really gave up, and luckily one of my friends was there. But yeah, literally, mate, that was one of the toughest times of my life. That was probably the toughest time of my life for sure.
Mate, I just want to pause there, man, and touch on this because, it is a problem in the veteran community, as I said, in the, within coalition forces and definitely within Australian force. I'm sure it's the same for you as well. But, when you're having these suicidal thoughts, man, and you're having a really fucking rough time and you think that the only way for these bad times to end is to fucking take your own life. Like, what goes through your mind? Or what happens? What are the circumstances like with your friends, conversations that you're having that makes you go, you know what? I'm a fucking soldier. I'm going to keep soldiering on. I'm going to figure out a way to deal with this issue. I'm going to find some tools that is going to get me out of this fucking hole and then allow me to grow and develop into the fucking person that I want to be remembered as.
Yeah, well, I think that's a very good point, mate. And if I'm being honest, it's not a simple solution. There was a number of things that fed in that helped me get there. And, it's important to understand that when people say to me, "Oh, were you in the army? Were you in the military or something?" I'll say, "Yeah, in a different lifetime." And that's how I categorize it. It was a different lifetime. I was a different person. I keep some of the key skills and values that I learned into the new me, but I had to let it go. And that was really what I had to get to get there. And I'll probably bring this up now. Counseling didn't really work for me. They kind of pointed out a way to solve the problem, and then I had to go off and do it on my own, because constantly going over shit that happened in my childhood, going over stuff I saw in the military, as a medic, I don't want to go over that over and over again, mate. It makes me feel shit. So, like, for me, it was about jokingly bottling it up and moving on. And that was really what it was, mate, is I just didn't move on. And because I didn't have classic signs of PTSD, I didn't understand what was going on. I had no idea. I had this feeling inside that it felt like someone was stood on my chest and I couldn't breathe. And like I'm telling the few friends that I've got around, because again, leaving the military, if you don't stay in the area, you go on to somewhere new, you have to make new friends. If you're not a super enjoyable person to be around, that really isn't going to happen.
And lose your tribe, bro.
Exactly that. And it's tough, bro. Like, and I was studying in university, so I'm poor as fuck. And yeah, so I can't do things with my old friends, and they start getting sassy because I'm not like coming to see them all the time, or I'm not, doing this and that. And it's tough. Like, it really is one of the toughest things to do for me to say goodbye to your family who you're so close with. I mean, you could just, me and Simon, mate, when we were in, we just sit there and cry and talk about stories and stuff. And, you flush it out. And then when you leave, you just don't have it. And so I would say the biggest problem there was not leaving that world behind, trying to still feel like I was this amazing person, this military cross winner soldier. I had to find a new identity. and go on to new things. And yeah, and really just fully embrace that.
Mate, I think that's a great point. And there's something that you brought up there that that piqued my interest. And when you said, I felt like someone was standing on my chest, right? Like, this is a thing, man. Like, with like PTSD, anxiety, depression, and things like that, people don't see like a physical disability, so they don't think that there's anything wrong with someone. Right now, if someone's dealing with anxiety, depression, PTSD, like, it literally feels like a physical fucking burden, right? So, in my coaching journey, I did what's called an NLP course and became a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming. And something that I took away from that, one of the biggest things, was how you speak to yourself. So going right back to what we said at the start about, here's the conclusion, and then we start creating these stories to fill in the gaps, right? And this is where I think, for myself, I went through a little bit of a rough time. Not as bad as a lot of people that transition from the military, but I went through a little bit of a rough time, kind of floated a little bit, lost my tribe, my self-identity, my purpose, my direction. And once I started implementing these tools again that I'd learned, standard operating procedures like getting out of bed at the same time, making my bed, shaving, fucking going to the gym, looking after myself and building my schedule, man, like, it really allowed me to, continue progressing my life in a way that was going to allow me to become and grow into the person that I wanted to be. Now, something that was really important there was those stories that I was telling myself. I had to change the story that I was telling myself, and instead of being, this entitled guy, I was like, I've been awarded this and fucking I was a highly functioning soldier and blah, 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 blah. And now, like, everyone else is shit. Like, I'm dealing with these people who, I can't rely upon at work, that are unprofessional, that are, not showing up on time and not respectful and not professional, not capable of doing their job, or just like barely meeting the minimum standard, man. I had to tell myself a different story, and I had to create a new narrative to be like, all right, well, maybe they just haven't had that same level of training. I've had a higher level of training. I expect higher standards from myself, and that's because, I'm relied upon as part of a team, right? So I started changing, the narratives that I was saying to myself and speaking to myself different. And I was like, well, that instead of that happening to me, that happened for me. All the good things in my life, all the bad things in my life, what did I learn from that particular situation? Okay. And again, I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to think about, I give myself a little AAR. All right, if that situation came up again, what would I fix? How would I fix it? What are my improves? How can I improve it? What's sustained? What did I do well to deal with that situation? All right, cool. Sweet. If this situation comes up again, how am I going to deal with it, right? And like, for me, always reflecting on, those decisions, actions, behaviors, circumstances, events that then, made me think about who I wanted to be, how I was going to deal with that again moving forward. Like, I love reflecting on all of those events, those crossroads in my life, to then go, hey, I learned something from that. What did I learn from that? How can I apply that in the future? So then I can start projecting towards, walking that path that I want to walk on to become the person that I want to be, man. I think that's really fucking powerful, is the way that you speak to yourself, because we want to take ourselves from, this victim mentality where we go, well, this happened to me, right? And now, because it happened to me, that story is like, I have no power in that. I have no control over what happens. Whereas if you go the other way and you take ownership, you take responsibility, you're accountable for those actions. All right, what did I do to get myself in that situation? Yeah, maybe I was being a shit partner. Maybe, I was being a little bit high and mighty. Maybe I wasn't giving people a fair chance when, maybe they had something going on in their life and they were rocking up late to work or whatever it might be, man. And I was like, all right, how can I become a better person? How can I tell myself a different story that's going to shape my mentality? And, instead of moving backwards, I'm now progressing forwards. As I said earlier, man, I want to be a fucking better person, a better human, a better man, a better coach in 5 years' time than what I am right now. Because I can look back to 5 years ago and say, I have improved in fucking so many areas of my life. And I'm really grateful for everything that's happened to me up until this point.
Yeah, exactly that. And there's nothing more funny than people, you see someone 5 years after you last saw them or something, and then they say, "Oh, cool, where has the time gone?" And you're like, mate, it feels like a fucking different decade for me. I don't know about you, but that feels like it's been about 20 years. I've done so much. So, like it's probably just going back quickly onto the how I felt when I was wanting to when I wanted to kill myself, was like, I didn't want to do it, and I was open with the few people that were in my life. I was like, look, I want to get out of this, but I just can't. I don't see a way. And like being severely depressed and not having any idea that you are severely depressed because you're this soldier that's done tours or whatever, so it must be PTSD. But I don't really have PTSD because it doesn't make sense. I feel like one of the best things for me was really just understanding my feelings and understanding that you have ups and downs in a day, but really like truly understanding what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way, and being okay with that. That was what helped get me out of it. And really, I just went off and started walking across Europe on my own with a dog and a tent. And I spent a long time walking through Europe, and spent some time in the Alps and stuff just on my own with the dog and stuff. And mate, it just really cleared my head up. And I can't say enough how beneficial just spending time on my own in the quiet with no distractions, just on your own. How that I was able to just process everything. And yeah, really, it was just amazing. And going then back to university, but now as a single guy and my support network's gone, like there is nothing more infuriating to a soldier or an ex-soldier than privileged students not giving a fuck what they've been through. And that was amazing for me, because I was like, no one here gives a fuck what I've been through, because they're too busy going through their own shit. And like, I remember being sat in an exam one day, and this young girl, bless her heart, like got up within 5 minutes, broke into tears, and fucking legged it for the door and burst through him like she was door kicking. Like, and I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine like what she must be feeling inside. And that was when I was really like, do you know what? This is normal. Everyone is feeling something. Everyone has their own story, whether you're a soldier, whether you self-harm, like no matter where you come from, everyone's got stuff going on inside. And you should just, and you got to accept it. Otherwise, it's just this little demon that sits on your shoulder that pokes up every now and then and fucks your day up. But for me, when that does happen, I'm like, yeah, I'll be good tomorrow though. Like, it'll be fine. I'm just going to sit here and eat chocolate today and just feel it.
Mate, that is really powerful, man. And, that is literally mindfulness, right? Is like understanding that emotions are emotions. They come and go, right? And I've heard this explained as like someone saying like, if you are trying to be happy all the time, you will never succeed, right? Because if people think that if they're chasing happiness all the time, okay, if something makes them not happy, all right, then they're fucking sad, then they're depressed, then blah, blah. Like, emotions are emotions. They come and go, right? So if I heard someone say, like, if you think that you can stay happy all the time, that's like trying to ride a wave, right? You can ride that wave for a certain period of time, but then that wave's going to crash. What do you do now? All right, you've got to fucking paddle back out. You've got to stay on the board. You've got to wait for the next wave, right? And that's what emotions are like, man. They fucking come and go. And as soon as you understand that, then, so many things affect our emotions. Our environment is a big one, bro. What we do, like social media, like what we read, what we listen to, who we speak to, who we interact with, how we eat, how we're sleeping, training. Everything impacts our emotional and physical and mental well-being, man. So, if you can pay attention to those thoughts and not act upon them and just acknowledge them and be like, all right, well, I'm not feeling great about myself today. Okay, what's within my control that I can do that's going to allow me to kind of balance everything out? I'm going to acknowledge that, hey, today I'm a little bit sad and I don't know why. Okay, how's my sleep been? I probably didn't sleep very well last night. My nutrition's probably a little bit shit. I haven't trained today. All right, had a fight with the missus this morning. All right, there's a few things there that I can probably address that are within my control. That's kind of going to balance me out a little bit. But if I don't pay attention to it and I don't acknowledge it and I don't put some action steps in place to balance myself out, you know, and ride that fucking sad wave out, or whatever you want to call it, like, and put myself into a good position to be able to catch the next happy wave or whatever it might be, like, you know, we can only control what we can control. So I think it's really important to, as you said, spend some time with yourself, man. Have your own fucking thoughts and acknowledge those thoughts and process them. You don't have to act upon them. You don't have to attach meaning to them, right? Just understand that they're going to come and go. And something I heard someone say, I think it was a book or a podcast or something, was like, think about your thoughts like a thief in the night, right? If a thief in the night comes into your house, right, and you've got all of this stuff, and they steal like a TV and a stereo and blah blah blah, like, you're attaching meaning to those thoughts, and those thoughts are going to then hijack your attention, right? And you go off on this tangent, and then you start going down the hill. Rather go, all right, this thief has come into my house. I'm not going to give him anything to take away. Okay, the thief goes, there's nothing here. Doesn't get any meaning, doesn't get any emotions attached to it, just leaves. All right, sweet. Next thought comes in. Do the same thing, man. Don't attach meaning, don't attach emotion. Acknowledge it, and then, you know, afterwards go, what do I want to act upon? Okay, I don't need to, you know, be reactive to those things. I understand these thoughts are coming in, but there's going to be some thoughts that are going to be important, that are within my control, that I can start putting action steps into place. There's going to be some thoughts that I can't control and I can't put action steps in place. So, you know, acknowledging that difference and then being able to determine the difference between them, what you can control and what you can't control. I think that's super important, bro.
Yeah, man. And I think that's a really, really good point. And I probably just go back to something that you said is that I think is hugely important, and you see it a lot these days, is that people are positive vibes only, and that's just not the life. That's not the world, right? You're trying to live in a bubble, and okay, fine. If you want to live in your own little bubble, then great. Mm-hmm. But when the bad times come for you, it's going to hit you so much harder. But yeah, and it is just as daft as people that are just miserable all the time, right? So it's something that you just kind of have to understand, that we are humans, right? And it's human nature to have human emotions. So, like, be angry if it's something that makes you angry. Be sad at something that makes you feel sad. Be happy something that makes you feel sad. And I think as Steve Ranella says quite well, in that he has like a gauge for happiness and things that make him happy, right? And there's a period of adversity prior to that. The greater the adversity to get to that that happy moment, the greater the happiness. And like the easier, like going on a roller coaster for something is the most quickly forgotten source of happiness, right? You could do it, you'd feel great, and then you forget that a week later. Whereas like when I do something that I do a lot, like say if I do 100-mile walk or something like that, and I do it in like 3 days, that is a horrible 3 days, but that's something I'll remember for years, and I'll remember that feeling, and I'll chase that feeling again. And yeah, so happiness without downtime and downside is just, how happy really are you? Are you just ticking over? And God help there be another pandemic come, because you're fucked.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other, right? Like, you know, if you've experienced bad times and, you know, been sad, depressed, blah, 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 like, it makes you, when something good happens, you know, it makes you appreciate it more. It makes you more grateful for those things, right? Like, if you never experience bad things, then, you know, how can you experience the other end, right? We live on this spectrum, man, and that pendulum's constantly swinging back and forth. Now, I heard someone say, you know, obviously post-traumatic stress is where people keep reliving these events over and over again, and, you know, they're living in the past and they wish that they could have done things differently and blah, 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 blah. But then on the other side of the spectrum, there's post-traumatic growth, where people have experienced something really fucking traumatic, but have come out the other side and like learnt from it, and they've learnt and they've been taught how to be grateful for certain things and good things in their life and the people around them and, you know, their situations, and taking control of the things that they can control and not focusing on the things that they can't control. And I think that's an important thing to understand as well, is like there's a spectrum. So, you know, you can influence where you sit on that spectrum. Are you going to go through drop to post-traumatic stress, or are you going to create an environment to allow post-traumatic growth?
Yeah, exactly. I actually love that. I've not heard of that before. But and something as well, I think it's Les Brown, so I who said this, and I use it a lot, is that you never have a bad day, you only ever have a character building day. And that probably falls in the NLP bucket, right? Just assigning a different name to something makes me feel a different way about it. Like if I'm having a hacking day with work, I'm like, this isn't a bad day. This is a character building day. And I feel differently about it. I'm like, I'll get through this day. Like, I'll fucking make it through this day. And tomorrow is a new one. And I have a new fresh start to kick the shit out of it. So yeah, mate, I think that's absolutely true. And I love that post-traumatic growth thing. That's good.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. That's awesome. And, you know, as you said, man, like tomorrow's a new day. I know that, you know, today might be a bad day. Things aren't going my way. What's within my control that I can, you know, put into action. And tomorrow is a new opportunity to create the environment that's going to allow me to thrive. And every day, once you start telling yourself that story, once you start, again, you spoke about like the words that you're using, right? Like this is an opportunity to grow, right? What was that quote you just said?
Yeah, you don't ever have a bad day.
Character building day.
Yeah, he said something else. What did he say? He says, "Don't. When the bad times are going to come, and they are going to come, you will experience bad times in your life. Just understand that they have not come to stay; they have come to pass. Like they are just a fleeting moment. Sometimes they stay for longer, sometimes they stay for shorter. But understand that they will pass. If, like I said right at the start, if you try and be the best possible version of yourself, not just an average person that just fits in society." Like, if you just try and be the best person that you can possibly be, you are fucking unstoppable. And, like, most people have no idea how powerful they are inside, and they'll never experience that. But if you truly believe you came differently and you are a breed apart, like, the success will come along with the bad times, but you will see through those bad times knowing that you are going to get somewhere fucking sick. And I do it every year, and every time I absolutely smash it, and I love myself. I'm so happy, and you know, I would 110% not be here right now had I not gone through those 2 difficult years.
Mate, this has been a fucking incredible conversation, bro. I've really enjoyed it. Just to start wrapping up the conversation, the name of the podcast is Live, Train, Perform, which stands for Live Life to the Fullest, Train to Your Potential, and Perform at Your Best. What does that mantra mean to you?
Yeah, so I think firstly, live, right? We all live, but we all die at some point. And one of my biggest not one of my fears, but something that I want to make sure never ever happens is that I get to a deathbed and I regret that I didn't live my life to the complete fullest. So every single day I wake up, and I just try and kill it every day. And it's gotten me to a point now where if someone said, "Oh, unfortunately, you've only got a month to live. You've got some hacking horrible cancer or something," I'll be like, "Okay, fair. Yeah, I mean, I had a sick one while it lasted." Like, how many people in their 30s could say that? Like, it's and it's been, but it came with hard work, right? So, and starting each day being like, what am I going to do? How am I going to attack it today? Or who am I going to spend time with today? Or am I going to tell my mate? My mate texted me yesterday, just out of the blue. He's like, "Mate, I fucking love you. I'm so proud to have you as a friend. You're an amazing friend." And I was like, "Oh, stop it. I wasn't ready for that." Like, and you know, like, and he approaches life the same way. He gets up in the morning and he gets fucking after it. And that's not always going and having a sick training session. Sometimes that's telling someone in your life that you love them, or making that effort to go drive to one of your friends and giving them a fucking hug and having a beer with them, right? So I'll never ever want to come to the end of my life not really have having a real fucking go at it. And, you know, a lot of people's days are based around trying to elongate that life, trying to make their time on this planet longer. Whereas what I try to do is just make my time here as fulfilled as possible, whether that means that I end up doing 45, 50, or whether I end up at like 90 or whatever, I don't care. But the days that make up my life are as fulfilled as possible. So yeah, what was it? Live, train, mate, as if I'm going to do fucking not train. Training is just like food to me. So yeah, and I guess probably on a more serious note on that I do like to say to people is that if I was like on the tube and there was a tube attack or something, which is very regular, or something like, or if an old woman fell down and had a heart attack or something, and the elevators were broken, or if some kind of situation, I would feel like the most shittest bloke ever if I was physically incapable of running upstairs with someone, or running up to get help, or incapable of carrying her or him, whatever. Like, if I felt physically not able to carry out some task that meant that someone had some kind of pain or physical ailment because of, I'd feel like a shit stain. So yeah, train, mate. Train, because you know, something, you never know what's going to come around the corner. And like
train
I said,
for life.
Exactly, mate. And you know, like, I would never have made that run to Simon if I didn't train 2-3 times a day, if I didn't, and I didn't know that was coming, like, but I trained because I wanted to be the best version of myself. And yeah, I don't know how many other guys could have done that run in that squadron with that weight, but yeah, it was something that was just a result of fucking grafting prior to it. And like Simon said, yeah, every day was a legs day, is something that I said, because I used to smash their legs. And then perform is just a result of hard work. Yeah, performing is just, I guess, the results of all your hard work. It's the glory bit. And I've said this to people who've had a bit of a swipe at university students. I'm like, something that they have to do that you don't do in the military is, so we're going on a run in the military, right? 10 miler with kit or something like that. It's horrible, but there's people watching you, and it is not that hard to perform when the lights are on you, when people are watching. It is fucking horrible to put in hours and hours and hours of hard work when there's no glory there, when there's no one watching you. And a degree was 3 years, right? So you have 3 years to work fucking hard behind the scenes for that thing at the end. And yeah, so performing is just a result of hard work. So like, I feel like the results come if you train and you live to the fullest, right? I guess they can link in maybe in a backwards way, something like that.
That's exactly why I named the podcast that, mate, because they all link in. But I'm always interested to hear what people say, because, like, for me, living life to the fullest is training to my potential, right? And training to my potential allows me to perform at my best in life. It allows me to live life to my fullest. So if something comes up, I want to fucking, you know, Si's been hitting me up. He's like, hey, let's do this challenge. Let's do this challenge. I'm not going to go into detail here because I don't want to give away any secrets, but, you know, I need to be I want to be prepared for anything that life throws at me, bro. You know, that's what live life to the fullest, train to your potential, perform at your best means to me, man. Like, it all fucking links in together, and it's all a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah, fuck right. And like, mate, going back to that marathon example, like, I got a call like a few weeks before. Oh, loads of people dropped out of this marathon. Do you want to run it for us? And I was like, fuck right. Like, well, hold on, have you done any training? I was like, no, but you know, I'm trained. So like, I'm fucking ready. I'm ready for anything. Like, how many people like are like that? And if it's really not. It's just the hard work, isn't it, really? I guess some people don't want to do that, but the feeling of being jacked and ready for anything is just something that you just feel like the ultimate boy, don't you? You just feel like the ultimate human. When, like, if someone's like, oh, you need to read this by Monday or something, then you're like, yeah, no worries. Rather than, oh, I actually haven't read anything since school. So yeah, I guess yeah, performing is just a byproduct of training hard and living to the fullest.
Exactly, man. I always say, like, whenever an event comes up, everything that you've done to lead up to that point is all that you have. Those are the fucking tools that you have right there and then. And the more tools you have in the toolbox, the more situations, the more circumstances, the more events you're able to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. My mate that I referenced earlier, Johnny, he does it all the time. He'll, like, the way he lives is hard. Well, not hard, but he lives and he trains, and he'll just challenge himself from a performance aspect. He'll be like, okay, shall I just go lunge a mile? I'm just going to go do lunges for a mile. And when you perform and then you succeed, you know, that you, like I said at the start, that, okay, what's the next thing? Then what's the next thing? And that military cross that I got, it made me into a person where I'm like, okay, I don't want to do anything where if I read it on the front page of a newspaper, I would think, what a cunt. I would think, what a dickhead. So because of that, right? So it makes me a better person. Like, I don't want to, and a lot of people, I guess, leave the military and they regress back to the person they were before because it's just, you know, they need somewhere to live, so they go back to where they were. And you know, then they go, and the military is such an amazing training package that they turn you into a different person. If you're regressing straight back to the person you were before, you're wasting all that training. And yeah, I think it's important to move on to where you're going, all that personal growth, and just continually challenge yourself. Just be like, okay, I wonder how long it's going to take me to do 100 pull-ups. Or if you're good at pull-ups, 500 pull-ups or something, and just fucking stay on that bar till you finish them, and then like understand that feeling of how you feel. If there's people listening that haven't done a little challenge themselves, challenge yourself to do something, and then see how you fucking feel afterwards. Yeah,
that's setting yourself up for achievement, man. And I think that is like the meaning of life for me, mate. This has been an incredible conversation, man. I've really enjoyed this one. You're a very inspirational dude, and I've loved hearing your story. I'm looking forward to getting this out to people. If people want to reach out to you, you know, touch base to say how much they appreciate this podcast, your story, the lessons that, you know, they've taken away from it, where can they find you?
Yeah, so social media wise, I'm only on Instagram because I think that's the easiest thing to control the content that I'm exposed to. So yeah, it's just Wes Masters. On Instagram, so at Wes Masters. And yeah, I mean, I got one coming up, regular adventures that I guess people can mimic and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the only place to reach me. The address isn't going out, I'm afraid.
Awesome, mate. I'll have that linked in the show notes, mate. Wes, I want to thank you very much for your time, brother. I appreciate you sharing your journey, man, your emotions, those lessons. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you face to face one day. I think we're going to become really good mates.
Yeah, Cobes, I've not been to Thailand, but so I've been meaning to come out there, and yeah, we'll definitely link up. But yeah, honestly, thank you so much for the invite. It's amazing to speak to you, and again, super inspirational guy. I think you're amazing at these podcasts. It's great to listen to every single one. So yeah, appreciate you having me on.
Awesome, mate. Thank you very much. Cheers, brother. Take care. And there we have it. Great conversation with Wes Masters, military cross recipient for actions in Afghanistan. This episode was brought to you by Swiss 8, which is a proactive mental health program designed by veterans, initially for veterans, that has been pushed out to the wider community via an app. The app allows you to schedule in their 8 pillars of health and wellness, which are sleep, nutrition, discipline, time management, fitness, personal growth, mindfulness, and minimalism. You can download the app via their website, which I'll have linked in the show notes. This episode was also brought to you by Be Spunky, which is a TGA-listed, Australian-made nutraceutical male hormone optimization supplement, which is a supplement I've been using for about 1.5 years now and absolutely rate. You can go onto their website, bespunky.com.au, and use the code KOBES, KOBES 10 for your 10% discount. Any 5-star ratings and reviews are much appreciated, guys. Much love. Peace.